Okay, Peter, Philip, we're sorry we missed you. We're here, and I wanted to keep you up to date on the Superhero Grandad stories. So Gracie and I are going to tell you one. So Superhero Grandad and the Spy Kids, they were in Maryland, and they were surprised when one morning one of the grandchildren got up and he wanted to set up the chessboard, and the red bishop was missing. And so they didn't think anything of it. Oh, well, maybe we misplaced it or we left it somewhere or it's underneath of a chair or something. But then later on they discovered that that all of the people in the neighborhood that played chess had the same experience, that all of the red bishops were missing. And so this is beginning to be a problem. And they turned on the news and looked on the internet, and it was all over the country. All the red bishops were missing. So Gracie can tell you what the kids were doing when they found out their red bishops were. They're going. That's what they were crying. So the first thing Superhero Grandad did was say, well, okay, let's just take a deep breath. Come here, Gracie. Just take a deep breath, and we're going to figure this thing out. But until we can figure it out, you can use something else instead of the red bishop and pretend it's the red bishop. So, Gracie, what are some of the things they can use?
Cereal.
Yeah, they could put a piece of cereal there instead of it, or a rock, or an Oreo cookie, or like an eyeball. They could get an eyeball. So then the kids settle down a little bit, and so then the Superhero Grandad and the Spy Kids sat down. And Gracie, what's the first thing you have to do when anything?
Have a plan.
You got to have a plan when you're going to attack a mystery like this. So what they did was they started looking on the internet to try to find out if there was somebody that was trying to sell red bishops. So that's exactly what they did. And sure enough, like on eBay, they found this one guy that was selling red bishops, and so
look, Chef, look at this.
Very cool. And so they decided to go to the eBay people and tell them that you got to tell us who this is. And they didn't want to. So that's what they did, but they didn't want to tell them. And so what happened was Superhero Grandad told them very sternly. He said, "This is a crime. This is stolen property you're selling, and you're going to get in trouble unless you cooperate with us to find out who's been stealing all the red bishops." And who did they think was doing it? Come here, Gracie. Sit next to me.
Evil genius.
The evil genius they suspected it was him. And what is his name? Gracie.
Colonel Sanders.
Colonel Sanders. And so they said, well, okay, so where are you getting all these red bishops? And so they said, the people at eBay said, well, every Friday night, a man pulls up in a big truck full of red bishops. And Gracie, what does the man look like?
He looks like he smells like chicken, and he has a white beard.
White beard, and what else?
He smells like chicken.
And a white suit.
Yeah, and a white suit.
So the Grand Spy Kids and Superhero Grandad said that's exactly what we suspected. Colonel Sanders again. What a nefarious man. So they decided to next Friday to hang out and hide, and so that's what they did. And when the truck pulled up at the warehouse, they surrounded him, and Superhero Grandad, he yanked open the door of the trailer, and the tractor trailer, and there was Colonel Sanders, and they said, okay, the gig's up. We know you've been stealing all these red bishops. And he didn't seem fazed at all by that. It's Colonel Sanders. He says, what are you talking about? I don't have any red bishops. You're crazy. Let me show you. And so he said, I'm going to show you. I'm going to open up the back of the truck. So he went in through the cab, and he went to the back of the truck. And of course, as it turns out, that was a mistake to let him back there. And all of a sudden, the back door of the trailer flung open, and out came Colonel Sanders in a little teeny jet. Vroom! And he made his escape. And they're like, oh boy, we shouldn't have let him in there. So he's going too fast, and all we've got is this school bus. Because if you remember, Superhero Granddad, he doesn't have a car. He drives a school bus. So they said, okay, one of you kids get your telescope and you keep an eye on him, and we're going to try to follow him.
Chef.
And so then
Chef.
they followed him, and he went all the way down. He went all the way down to the harbor.
Chef.
Yes.
Let me concentrate.
Okay.
Building this because this.
So they went all the way down to the harbor, and he got on this big ship. And so they said, well, by the time they got down to the harbor, he was way out in the ocean. And so they turned Superhero Granddad has the ability to turn the school bus into a submarine, and that's exactly what he did.
How does he do that?
And it's because he's pretty smart, this guy. And so then they got in the submarine, but just before they took off, Superhero Grandad said, you know, I better check it, because the last time I tried to follow him, the evil genius Colonel Sanders, he had fiddled with my compass, and he made north point to south and south point to north, and then I ended up going to the wrong way. So he checked out his compass and made sure it was working okay. And then they took,
I'm not concentrating with all these noise.
and then they took off after him. And so they followed him, and he went all the way across the ocean to a country. What was the country called, Gracie? It was called Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And so then he got into the ocean. He turned into this sea that was smaller sea, and then it was too shallow for the submarine. So they had to get out of the submarine. And Colonel Sanders, he got out of the big ship, and he got into a small boat, kind of like a little bit bigger than 2020, and he took off across the sea. And so Superhero Granddad and Spy Kids, they got on jet skis that he had in the submarine, and they went after him. But here's what happened. So they were following him, and they're getting really close, and then they came to this end of the sea, and it was filled with golden ibis. And Colonel Sanders...
You mean golden ibis?
Yeah, okay, you're right, golden ibis. And so Colonel Sanders, he drove right through the golden ibis, and he killed anyone in its path, and because he's evil. He's just stone cold evil.
What's
so
stone cold evil?
He just doesn't. It doesn't seem to bother him to kill something like a golden ibis. So the Superhero Granddad and the Spy Kids, they had to stop because they couldn't drive in and kill golden ibis. And so Colonel Sanders got to the end of that sea. That went into a river, and he turned around, and you know what he yelled at them?
Nanny, nanny, boo, boo.
That's exactly what he yelled. He yelled, nanny, nanny, boo, boo, and he got away again. And so the Superhero Granddad and the Spy Kids are saying, boy, we've been so many times we've been close to catching this guy, and we just can't catch him. And now we got to go back to Maryland. And so they went back and on their jet skis and picked up the submarine and then went back to the United States, and they got in the school bus, and they were